Welcome back to Mountain Minds Monday for the main part of our event. Before we jump into it, we want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. So our gold sponsor is Holland & Hart. They actually practice a lot of different types of law, but it might be of interest here that they do a lot of intellectual property work. Our silver sponsors, so we have new leaders. They've been our sponsor for probably about 7 years. So we really appreciate that. They're a Truckee-based web and mobile application development company. Also a silver sponsor is Mobo Law. They have offices in Truckee, Reno, Sacramento, and Incline. And they represent clients in business law, construction law, estate planning, family law, intellectual property, real estate law, and bankruptcy. And our final silver sponsor is Mountain Workspace. So they're a relatively new co-working space over in Incline Village. So definitely go check out the new space there. And also a big thank you to our community partners that make this possible, the Truckee Chamber, Truckee Tahoe Community Television, the Lyft Co-working, and of course right here, Pizza on the Hill. So how do you become a sponsor? I've got a link for you right here. You can use our Tahoe Silicon Mountain at gmail.com email address. I'm also happy to speak with you after the event. And I should mention Josh Miller, he's our sponsorship coordinator. He couldn't make it tonight, so he'll be the one getting back to you about it. And a big thank you again for our sponsors. And we also have individual sponsors that I want to extend a big thank you to as well. So the deal with the individual sponsors, it's a person versus a business. You pay $150 for the year. That gives you entry to all the Mountain Minds Monday events. You get pizza and salad at the event, and you also get a special coupon. You get 1 beer or 1 wine or 2 sodas. And we check in our individual sponsors first, so when we get a lineup at the door, you'll be in first. So we have that link. If you'd like to sign up, you can also sign up at any one of our events here. So with that, we are on to our main event. So Ellen Rayner, who's on our board here at Tahoe Silicon Mountain, is going to be moderating tonight's event. So I'll just go ahead and pass it over to her.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. What do I have to do? We good with the mics now? Okay, great. So we're super excited about this event tonight. We're talking about Accelerator programs. Accelerator programs have been around since 2005 when Y-Combinator started the first one, and followed closely in 2006 by Techstars, which we'll hear about a little bit this evening. What a startup accelerator is, and they're also known as seed accelerators, it's a fixed term, so usually a 2 or 3 month program, cohort-based, so you have a group of people going through all at the same time, going through the same learnings, that include usually some seed investment, connections, mentorship, educational components, and then they usually end with a public pitch event or demo day. And it's all designed to accelerate growth. So there's a lot of these. At last count, there were over 700 accelerators. If you look at the criteria I mentioned, it cuts down by about 2/3. There was only 172. But the growth has been pretty quick. It's been growing 50% a year from 2008 to 2014 in accelerator programs. And they have collectively invested in over 5,000 startups that have raised $19.5 billion. The grads of those programs actually went on to raise even more money, winding up with venture capital leading to median valuation of $15.6 million and an average of $90 million. So that number should tell you there's been some unicorns in there. In terms of outcomes, we're going to hear a lot about that from our panelists today, but I think you'll hear over and over again, it's an immersive education experience that is designed to accelerate the process. So you're fitting a lot of learning into a really short amount of time. And I think you'll also hear about the differences of being a part of a top program, because it's the top programs that reach key milestones faster. Milestones like funding, milestones like having a good exit, or from gaining traction quickly. So tonight we're lucky to have 3 local speakers they're all full-time local residents in the Truckee or Reno area, and have been through not 1 but 2 accelerator programs each. So the way we're going to go through this, we're going to have introductions from each of the 3 panelists. They'll tell you a little bit about the company and the timeline they've been through. Then we'll do a moderated panel discussion and finish up with questions from the audience. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Allison, who you met earlier, is the CEO and co-founder of Filament. Her vision for bringing economic capability to connected physical machines used in business and industrial environments is the cornerstone of Filament's technology solutions. Allison's technical leadership and entrepreneurial mindset supported the creation of Filament's Blockit chip, the first secure hardware solution for the Internet of Things. Prior to Filament, Allison's expertise in hardware and software engineering led her to launch and manage technology startups in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York City. Allison serves on the Computer Science and Engineering Advisory Board at the University of Nevada, Reno, and she's a Techstars mentor. And I have to say, if you've been in the startup community in the Reno area, you've been lucky enough to see how generous she is giving of her time to help all of us who are starting companies and share her experience. So I'm glad she was able to make the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. And thank you for that really kind intro. Startups. Startups are just like nothing else in the human experience, in my opinion. This is startup number 7 for me. So I've had 6 failed startups. I started my first startup when I was 19, a web hosting company in Reno, back when we all used ISPs still, and we all had email at prodigy.net and CompuServe and AOL. So there's no real right answer, and there's no real book that teaches you how to do this. I'll give you a quick rundown of what we've done, and then we'll get into the questions. So Filament focuses in this space, like I mentioned in the intro, around, without getting too much into details, in short, what Filament is trying to do is to allow machines to be economic in nature. If you know of anything about the blockchain or Bitcoin world, all of these technologies are meant for people to be able to pay each other or to validate trust in poorly trusted environments. And what Filament is focusing on is to look through the lens of machines and what that means for machines to start to be trustworthy in the data that they output, like Volkswagen, trustworthy in the regulatory environment in which they sit, oftentimes in energy or oil and gas or these highly regulated industries. We're, at the end of the day, often trusting machines or people rather, to trust the data that they read off of a machine's gauge or valve or any other reading. And so Filament wants to bring this capability so that machines can be trustworthy of their own, and people can then allow the machines to be trustworthy on their behalf. And the idea here is less fraud, more value, et cetera. So a little bit about our history, how we got here. We've gone through 3 rounds of funding. We built the first prototype back in 2012, team of 2, bootstrapped, nights and weekends in a spare bedroom in my house, laying out hardware boards and circuits and writing firmware and whatnot. In 2013, we completed a crowdfunding campaign, which still team of 2, but we realized there's actually a desire for this early product. We took that and we raised a 1 million seed round in 2013 with a couple more people who were just crazy enough to join us at that time. From there, we entered the Techstars IoT New York City program after being almost running out of money. We'll talk about that tonight. We got to a point between that 1 million seed round and 2014 of having 8 days of money left. Very terrifying position to be in. Don't ever do that. We exited the Techstars program after 14, raised a seed or an A round after that, At the end of that, finished the enterprise product with a minor product, or rather go-to-market pivot. And then we just last year raised a $15 million second A round with a much larger team. And here we are today at 22, headquarters in Reno, Nevada, starting to land some pretty big deals, which we're very excited about because it's been a long haul to get here. And we've pivoted the product a couple times. We've refocused how we go to market a couple times, learned a lot of things that were wrong. The takeaways that we'll talk again, there are really only a couple of really good ones, and it's not to dig on any new or different, but there's a reason why there's only a couple is because they attract a lot of the good companies, and they're very specific. You know, the statistic shows that it's harder to get into, for instance, Techstars or Y-Combinator, some of these other top ones, 500 as well, than it is to get into like Harvard or Stanford. Like, you know, thousands of people apply, they take 9 or 10. They're picky, and it's not easy, but they're beneficial because they're so exclusive that they end up helping in a lot of ways. To distinguish yourself, like I was born and raised in Reno, how does one get into an accelerator? Like, honestly, I learned the hard way. I'm very shy, traditionally very, very shy when I was younger. You have to learn how to network, especially not being in the Bay Area. And so through a whole host of processes, I got to that point. And then lastly, you know, if you can get in and you get into one that can give you value, take all of the value you can from it. It's really, there's so much to get. And that's it. I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
So our next panelist, Adam. Adam is the CEO and co-founder of Talage, the marketplace for small business insurance. Adam's a 2-time graduate of the University of Nevada and former captain of the Nevada football team, leading them to a championship season in 2005. After learning the insurance industry from the ground up, Adam and his co-founders articulated the problem and built the solution, saving small business owners time and money while increasing the service they use through technological efficiency. Talage is a Reno-based insurance technology company. Talage is closing a seed round of venture funding and rapidly hiring to keep pace with product and revenue growth.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the last wire cleared on the way up here today, so pretty excited about that. Yeah, so Talage is the small business insurance marketplace. Over the years, we've seen small businesses move their services online, companies' QuickBooks, even your online banking platforms. Businesses are willing to take these things to self-service portals, and so our idea was to kind of complete that, you know, that core set of business services and take insurance to an online portal. And so Talage basically creates a kayak experience for business owners. They enter their information one time. We've directly integrated with AM Best A-rated insurance partners, sends the information out, returns comparable options that they can actually purchase right then. And this is our last product. Actually, I don't even think it's the last one. I think we have a new one after this. So this is an outdated product screen, but you're able to, you know, compare options, apples to apples, and actually buy a policy, end up with a certificate of insurance in minutes, Saturday night, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, helping small business owners move faster. These are the carriers we're working with. So we're really excited about this screen. Originally, it was me and my 2 co-founders showing up at the door of Travelers Insurance, and after they stopped kicking us out, they finally let us sell their product. So I'm pretty proud of this, that the 3 guys from Reno were able to convince these guys that the internet's not a fad and that businesses can take these products online. This is our history, which got screwed up a little bit here, but that's okay, we'll run with it. I got screwed up a lot. We were founded in September 2015, and honestly, it was an LLC because one of our insurance companies said, yeah, we'll do business with you. You need to sign a contract. And we thought, we need an entity to sign that contract. So we created an entity, founded it. The first company came on the platform right away. We did a small friends and family round, harassed mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, and our friends. And then we joined a small kind of pre-accelerator. They called it Unbanked Ventures, which I can dive into here in a little bit, which was a good experience for us. It was kind of our first dip of our toe into the Bay Area. We brought our first customer on board right then. We hired contractors to help build the product out. But up to this point, very much bootstrapped until early in 2018 when we had given up on the idea of accelerators. One of them called us through a mutual network and took a chance on us. Went down to the Bay Area when we had given up on a seed round, and we're like, let's just focus on the product and we'll move on that. That was pretty much the exact time that our lead investor came in and said, we'll take the lead on this seed that you're not working on right now. So we went with them, brought on our first national distribution partner, just closed our seed round. Literally, like I said, the last wire closed this afternoon when we were driving up from Reno. Hired our first employee June 1st, made our second offer today. So we're hiring 4 to 5 people right now. Really excited about the growth that's ahead of Talage, in front of Talage. And yeah, these were the 2 accelerators we were, like I said, the Unbank venture program was kind of a pre-accelerator program. It was interesting, didn't cost a lot of equity for us, which is really why we did it. The Accelerator program was really the one that kind of turned the corner for us. It's a SaaS-based B2B accelerator. The founders of that accelerator were old box guys, and so it had a lot of connections in the B2B SaaS models. We're kind of a fringe SaaS player, but we fit close enough to what they were looking for. Made an investment in us, kind of gave us, for us, the biggest thing was being from Reno, being first-time founders. We have a way better track record than you. We haven't failed yet, so. But being first-time founders comes with its own set of challenges. You have to build your own credibility. Even a failure, I think, in a lot of ways, gives you more credibility than, kind of just starting out. So Accelerator gave us that credibility in the Bay Area. Made introductions. Our lead investor actually came from an alumni connection, not even directly through Accelerator, but from a cohort from a previous company from a previous cohort. Made an introduction to our lead investor. They took the leap on us, and we're off and running. So that's us today. So thank you.
Thanks, Adam. And this is exciting for us. Tahoe Silicon Mountain is newly a nonprofit, and so we're running the program through its paces because we need insurance as a new organization. So next up, Aaron Sturm from StreamLoan. Aaron works in business operations at StreamLoan, concentrating on their go-to-market strategy, product positioning, sales, business development, and customer success. Aaron oversees third-party biz dev partnerships for StreamLoan. He's responsible for identifying, sourcing, developing, and executing third-party partnerships. Aaron works as part of the leadership team in developing and executing an enterprise sales strategy. That was your timer being done, so you were good. So you were good. Aaron managed StreamLoan's first sales team and developed a successful enterprise sales playbook. And those of you who've done enterprise software know how hard that is. He set and executed the marketing and PR strategy for the firm. He oversees customer success with large enterprise customers, making sure that StreamLoan exceeded their expectations. Drives platform adoption and helps with large digital transformation for customers. Provided leadership with fintech insights and market trends that help set successful company strategy and execution, allowing StreamLoan to achieve product market fit. So, Aaron. And first, the picture.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Here at StreamLoan, a bit about StreamLoan. So StreamLoan, as you might have heard about this big digital marketing or digital mortgage revolution that is going around. You see it with Rocket Mortgage at Quicken. You see it happening with Loan Depot. It's the idea of how do you go through the mortgage process that is incredibly painful right now and make it easy, make it enjoyable. And in our world, what we're trying to do, everything we do at StreamLoan, is trying to make that journey to home ownership as rewarding as the destination. So if you think about, for those of you that have gone through the mortgage process and the home purchase journey, it's painful. When you get into your home for the first time and the mortgage is in the rearview mirror, it's this amazing emotional feeling that, wow, we got here, we did this, it's the American dream, but getting here sucked. And how do we make that journey as awesome as that feeling you get when you're in your home? And that's really what StreamLoan is here to do. We believe that there's a better way. We started building the technology. Our founders, someone by the name of Stephen Bolfer and Armando Gonzalez, came up with the platform before Rocket Mortgage was born. And we knew Rocket Mortgage was coming. We said, wow, this is going to be a game changer when this comes out. And I think it was Quicken spent upwards of $200 million developing Rocket Mortgage. So really expensive platforms. And what did that do? It changed the landscape when they launched that for all other mortgage lenders out there. Now consumers around the US are expecting a Rocket Mortgage-like experience, but yet they don't have the resources to build their own platform. So we basically figured out a way through our technology, and unfortunately it looks like the formatting might have slipped here a bit, but to go through the mortgage process and bring it all together on a mobile environment, to connect to 15,000 financial institutions to pull in the statements and the underwriting contingencies that are required, to allow real estate agents out there where 70% of the leads come from in the lending space come from the real estate agent, how to have a real estate agent start a lead in real time at an open house and allow the borrower to be pulled in, alert the loan officer, connect everything to the back-end system of record, and get underwriting decisions done in a matter of minutes. Contingencies could get automated, everything could get pushed back in a secure mobile environment that's collaborative and transparent for all parties involved in a transaction, and going right to the end game. And for those of you who have gone through the process, it's nothing, it doesn't look anything like this right now. Quick piece on timeline. So there is the kind of the big aha moment we had when the Super Bowl ad for Rocket Mortgage came out. We were ready to go for that. We knew it was coming. Right after that, we went out to market with our platform, signed up our first really large national customer with Altera Home Loans, a really visionary lender that their core market is first-time home buyer, Latino, and millennial. So the intersection of that fits perfectly for a mobile digital solution. Once we started getting that traction, we started growing a bit, started putting Accelerator applications out there, started building and refining the product and figuring out, okay, how do we make this product even better? Put the application in for 500, 500 accepted us, and we were kind of off to the races with them. And kind of in a few minutes, I'll dive into the details around that piece. Once we were finishing up at 500, we realized, okay, the power play here is all about data. It's all about the information that we get on the back end. How do we get the structured and unstructured data? And what do we do with that data to make better underwriting decisions for our clients and allow them to help make their underwriting decisions with the data that we provide? So we applied to the Yodlee Accelerator Incubator program. Their program is very specific. It's very technical, very data-driven. It's not like a YC or a 500. It was very niche-focused. And with that program, a couple of my colleagues spent most of the time on the ground at that program because it was much more technical, where I was much more on the business side. Once we finished that up, we continued on, raised and closed our seed round. We raised about $2 million in a seed round, and then we launched put our refined product version 2 in the hands of the loan officers with Altera and some other lenders out there, and started processing loans. And we started processing just an absolute ton of loans from this organization coming through. Key takeaways from the 500 experience, and kind of went photos here. One is, they said this from day one, it's gonna be hard. Like, this is not gonna be easy. It's gonna be kind of 3 months of hell and just really hard. And it was. Expect to break the rules. The way that you think things have been done in the past is not the way that we want them done in the future. So go the opposite direction. They said it doesn't happen overnight, especially when you're working in financial services, you're working in an industry that still uses fax machines. People, the average loan officer, I think, is male, white, and 55. So it's a really hard industry to get change. Think about that new way. How do you get them to go the new way? And you're always, always hustling, right? And the other two here are critical too. 500 beat us into our heads. Stay focused, stay humble, but always hustle. You're always on the hustle with it. And the other thing that 500 was great about was no success theater. Check your ego at the door, right? Everyone here can tell you a great story about how things are going well, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to work. We're here to really have an impact on your business, and it's not about success theater. And the one final key takeaway from 500 is, what is your metric that matters? It might not be what you thought it was when you came in, but when you leave, you should know what that one key metric that matters is. And everything that we talked about in all of the immersion of the education was all about that success metric. identifying it, and making sure that it's really going to be your metric.
Great. Well, impressive and diverse backgrounds. And just one more comment, because Aaron talked about being humble, so didn't blow his own horn enough about how it was to get into the accelerator. So hopefully some of that will come out in the Q&A. What you probably noticed across all of these is that they've been at it for a while, and you still have to pay the mortgage and things like that during that time. So why don't each of you share with us a little bit about how much sweat equity went in before anybody was getting paid?
Start with that. I was saying earlier, I don't think that ever ends. Right? We're early stage startup. We're still putting a lot of sweat equity, a lot of very sub-market compensation for the entire team, a lot more hours than you would get on top of that low compensation. But specifically, the real sweat equity where there's zero return on it, where there's definitely multiple years on the front end. And it's not far from that now, because we're still early stage. And every dime that I take is a dime that's not going into the business. And the business needs product, right? We need development, and the developers want money. Thankfully, I don't need it right away, but I do need some to pay the bills. But I want the developers to take the money so they can build product. Product allows the company to grow and for us to get more customers. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if we put the money back into the business. And every dollar I take out of it's a dollar less for an engineer to build a product. So I really do think that, at least in this stage, it doesn't end. It's kind of just accept it and put the time in and figure out other ways to, either whether it's consulting on the side or ways to kind of cover the overhead that you have in life, because we all obviously have to pay our bills.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It doesn't really ever end. I mean, Filament's privileged enough, and we're very lucky to be in a spot where we can pay our bills now. There was a time at the beginning we couldn't. There were many nights and weekends that I spent at a workbench in my house, like I said, at that, basically laying out in Eagle PCB, which is a program, an application used to lay out circuit boards, trying to get these things working. I was on revision number 12 and I couldn't get it working. It was just like this, nights and weekends, and it was so ridiculous that I had to quit my job so I could spend more time on this. So I took contract work on the side just to keep things going so we could pay bills for our home, and like mortgage and things like that. So I mean, I was taking any work I could get, and it was very non-glorious work. I'm not shameful to say that I literally took a job building a quilting website to start Pinocchio. And that Pinocchio turned into Filament. You can't have ego. You got to really just take what you can. And that was just paying the bills. It was a friend of mine who needed some help. He went off to I don't know, be his mom's a quilt mogul now. They have this YouTube channel, and he's he's got 500 employees, and he started with 2, and it was amazing. So I got some inspirations watching him, and I actually met him at the first Techstars program I was in. So it doesn't really ever end, but at the same time, you can't be too proud at the beginning. You have to just start with whatever you can, and believe that your idea can get somewhere, and then prove it or disprove it quickly. And then at some point, either people will believe you and start giving you money to prove it, or they won't. But there's only one way to find out. So.
And I'll probably just let my wife answer this question. Yeah, so my story is a little different. So I met my co-founders, and we started the company, and I was not in a position to leave my current job. So I worked 2 jobs, one with significantly more hours and significantly worse pay for almost 2 years. So went through that, and then finally is actually coincided with the Accelerator program. I actually took the leap, left kind of the day job, and made Talage a full-time gig. But yeah, it's a long time, and the bills don't go away. I mean, to you guys' point, I'll just kind of repeat what they said. The bank doesn't care that you have the stream, right? So the mortgage has to get paid every month. But yeah, It's a long time. It's not as nearly as glamorous as the Facebook movie makes it look.
Okay, so long process to get here. When is the right time to look to join an accelerator? What should you have already accomplished before you're applying? Otherwise, you're wasting your time by applying.
No, great question. I think it depends on the accelerator, right? So different accelerators focus on different areas. 500, for example, was really focused on seed round and getting you from the concept of you have traction, you have a product. So the time to apply, they wanted to see traction, right? If we would have applied 6 months earlier, I think we might have and gotten rejected, but it maybe multiple times. It's all blur because I was writing applications and submitting them round the clock for everyone I could do at the time on the top tiers. But they wanted traction, and then the seed money would allow us, or the seed round that we were raising would allow us to get to that next level. So for us, the right time was once we had realized that we had a marquee customer number one as a national customer, and then we were starting to monetize that and kind of take it to the next level. And they wanted to see that, wait a minute, you guys actually do have traction, you're more than an idea. And they wanted to see that someone else besides them believed in it.
Yeah, I would just add to that, I only have the Techstars experience, but they wanted to see something, and so coming with just an idea or something that you can just like kind of throw, onto a whiteboard or write out a lean canvas on is fine, but the more traction you can show, the better. Remember, you're trying to differentiate from a lot of other applicants. My personal opinion is that you actually want to try to apply as late as possible, because every additional week or month you can take to bootstrap and to learn is more value and more data you have, more areas to avoid, more swamps to avoid that spend a lot of time and money, which is the one or two things that you don't have as a bootstrap startup. Time is the great scarcity for everybody, regardless of how much money you have. Uber even has a time scarcity. But resource also of money you do when you're a startup, when you're a bootstrap. And so you really want to try to focus on like trying to wait as long as you can so that you believe and you've got traction. In fact, you could honestly look someone in the eye who might give you money and say, if you give me the additional resource, I can turn this into a multiplier like that, and be able to show the data behind it rather than like, I think I have an idea. At the same time, they want to get in early because the earlier they get in, the more upside they'll see. And so there's a balance. But I think, as late as you can wait and no later, I guess is the short answer. Sometimes you just run out of time.
I agree with both of you. I just kind of add, I think sometimes something I underestimated was it wasn't so much our timing, it was other people's timing. Like Y-Combinator, we applied for Y-Combinator, we were rejected in part because a company called Zenefits, which was in the broader insurance space, had just raised like $500 million and had cut a bunch of corners from a compliance standpoint and laid off their 2,500 people that they had hired last year. And it was just a messy situation. 500, we also got rejected from 500. I think we got rejected from everybody, actually. But 500 rejected us because they had a company in a previous cohort, which, looking at your calendar, may have been your cohort, that wasn't getting the traction that they thought they could. And so, we had a similar model, some differences, but they were just kind of, they're like, we're going to wait on this insurtech space for a minute. And so the timing just didn't match up for us. And so when we actually got into Accelerprise, like I mentioned, was when we had kind of completely given up on accelerators, decided we were going to do it ourselves. Had met Accelerprise through an angel investor in New York City, was like, hey, you should meet this guy because he's got a brother who's doing something cool in the Bay Area. He called us. We actually joined Accelerprise a week and a half after it started because we just met them through this chance. We never filled out an application and really had kind of given up on the whole thing. So the timing, just stay at it because you never know what the timing is going to be, what that trigger moment's going to be.
Talk a little bit about how you selected which ones to apply to and where people might go to find accelerators that might be appropriate for them.
I'll start out. I think I broke it. There we go. Connected items. We had applied to all of them. I don't think we did Techstars, but we did all the others, and we got rejected almost all of them, and we kind of given up. So I won't repeat myself more. And we just kind of found Accelerprise, which ended up being a great fit for us as a company culturally, and really filled the need that we had at the time.
Yeah, for us, we were in kind of two verticals we crossover. One is SaaS, right, a software as a service platform, and then another one was financial technology and fintech. So, the first level that we looked at is which ones really service our space and would allow us to have the introductions to either investors or mentors or help grow our business within those two spaces. I mean, it obviously would not make sense for us to go into health tech or someone that's just completely out of our space. Then there's kind of the practical pieces to it, right? But I have a family, and our founders have families, and we're not up and moving to Paris for 3 months, or depending on where the accelerator is. We have to be realistic of where can we be physically that we need to be there for some of these accelerators. So there's the kind of that practical logistical piece of life, right? Life just goes by. And I'd say between those two are kind of the core, which one would add the most value to us from a vertical perspective, and then which one really just made sense for our business, location-wise.
Yeah, and there's a recent trend in accelerators, which is to have a theme. I went to the Techstars program in 2011. It was the inaugural New York City program, and that was just Techstars, and it was a different company, and it failed spectacularly. But it was just like Techstars, kind of like YC is just YC. It's just like, whatever you got, come with you got, and we'll introduce you to a bunch of people. Now what's happening, and Techstars is doing this, and I think a lot of others are, I think it's a really good idea, is to, kind of like what has been mentioned already, is it's themed in a certain area. So you now might have a healthcare, or a fintech, or an insurtech, or IoT, or even, crypto or decentralized startups. It's really good because you need that capability and that focus, because often what comes with it and what you need most when you're a startup is legitimate early business. And so if you can get early business, for instance, I know that Techstars has, they have a healthcare startup in Cedars-Sinai, right? We had talked about this. And so they actually have a very important startup that's focused around health, and it's with a hospital, it's with a healthcare group. And so if you need to talk to, the CIO of Cedars-Sinai down in LA, it's a great place to be, because you can sit down and say, hey, can you, actually they're coming in, they're a mentor, they'll be here next Tuesday, so you can have a half hour with them. It's like, oh my God, how would you get a half hour with CIO of Cedars-Sinai? That's just some random startup. Well, that's what all of these startups, or accelerators that have these programs can bring. It's not just a Techstars thing by any means, but you need that connection. Remember that network piece I mentioned earlier is one of the biggest things you miss when you're small. And so I would recommend, if you're thinking about that, find one that is within your vertical, and then milk it. Take as much as you can from it. You're there to receive and to get a boost. It's why they call it an accelerator, because they want to accelerate you faster than you would normally go. And so a lot of how fast you go is going to be up to you and how much you can hang in there for 3 to 4 months. But it's the first time I went through, I worked really hard, and I felt like I worked hard, and I got a lot out of it. The second time I went through, I knew what I didn't do right the first time, and so I learned how to kind of work smarter instead of harder, and really got the intros we needed. But we made a lot of intros, or a lot of connections with big strategic companies, which was important to us, right? We raised from Verizon Ventures and from Samsung Ventures out of Techstars IoT, because they were mentors in the IoT program, because Verizon cares about IoT and Samsung cares about IoT. And so leverage that, take it, it's for you, and you should use it. So I'm a big believer in it, and don't just do the general ones anymore if you can help it. And I think that we're kind of evolving out of that anyways.
Obviously not in a major metropolitan center. There's advantages and disadvantages to being so far away from some of the programs. What did you experience with that?
I'll start. Both of my programs were in New York City in the winter, and you can't really get further from Reno or Tahoe than New York City in the winter. And so it's even colder there than it is here in the winter. And it was hard because it was difficult because I wish it were in LA. Honestly, I wish it were in San Francisco. I wish it was in Seattle, even in Portland, somewhere that was within 2-hour flying distance. But 6.5-hour flying distance, 3 time zones away, is tough when you try to stay connected to family. And the first time we got accepted, I found out a week and a half before I had to leave, and for 4 months. And it was hard for the family, hard for my family and what we're doing. Second time, we found out about 3 months before we knew we had to leave, which was much better. But it's basically who all wants to move to New York for 4 months, and we didn't make everyone, but we wanted much of our team there. So, I mean, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, if you get accepted, you go, I think, is what the right answer is. You prefer the West Coast ones, I do. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't decline it ever. I don't think that that's an option, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. And ours was in San Francisco at the time, so we had maybe a week and a half. I had to scramble, find a place to live. It puts pressure on the family because you're gone midweek and really tight family up here and back down there, back and forth. But you don't say no because it was an opportunity. In my background, just 2 seconds before StreamLoan, I'd spent 20 years in big corporate. So I looked at it as a great opportunity to rebrand myself and re-educate myself, and which it was, right? You're in these sessions that last 12 hours a day with new speakers coming in every 45 minutes, and you're just learning and absorbing so much. And at the end of the day, you're pretty crushed and exhausted. You want to sleep for a few hours, come back and find out and learn about hear the speakers the next day, because there's a full schedule of speakers the next day. And then when you're in the Bay Area, we were raising money, so we had VC meetings and investor meetings that would typically be every half hour at times in the Bay Area. So you're physically there and you're really immersed in it at that point in time, which was great. It was cool because you lived it, you drank it, you slept it, and then kind of got up and did it again, and it was a great place to come home to, being here.
Yeah, I echo both of you guys. We were in San Francisco, and it makes all the difference in the world being near those guys. The network down there is obviously the biggest difference between someplace like Reno and Truckee and San Francisco, because everybody knows somebody who's done this before, and so the connections down there. For us, it was a big deal. I grew up in the Bay Area. My co-founder and I, when we were down there, he moved back into the bedroom that he went to high school in. With his parents, which was a lot of fun for him, and I slept on my younger brother's couch in Concord, and we took BART into the city every single day, which you do those 11-hour days, and then you get on BART next to a homeless person for an hour on the way home, so it's a nice treat to end the day. But yeah, I mean, being in Palo Alto, I mean, even though Palo Alto's, what, 3.5 hours away from San Francisco, feels like, or more, I think just being down there is it's such an immersive experience, and it's so vital to the entire experience.
What do you wish you knew going into the program? How would you advise people to prepare to get the most out of it?
Yeah, I think the network. I think you kind of have to almost think of it as being in college, right? You learn a lot of things. You learn a lot of fundamentals. You take a marketing class, you take a business class, whatever you're doing. But I think when you look in hindsight on your college experience, I think it's your network. Is that what you take away is the most valuable thing? And I think an accelerator program is very similar. Like I said earlier, our lead investor literally came from an introduction from an alumni from the program. We had met him, we had talked to him for half an hour. He was like, you guys should meet these guys. We met with them next week. We had a follow-up meeting with all the partners the week after, and they wrote us a check the week after that. I mean, so it's fast. Things just move faster. And really take advantage of the network, I think, would be my biggest advice.
I would say have an open mind. Go into it with an open mind, a clean slate. I came out with that background in financial services for 20 years, very kind of stodgy. Things are done a certain way and not a different way. So going in and kind of having that open mind and understanding that this is another world and things are going to be uncomfortable at times, and kind of push yourself to a space that you're like, I'm not sure that's exactly how it should be done, but it is going to be how it's going to get done. Also, there's no one to call. When something needs to get done, it's you rolling up the sleeves. In my old world, I would just call my PR agency and they'd write the press release, right? I'd just give them a couple bullet points. Now I'm rolling up the sleeves and writing the press release or creating whatever that asset is. There's no one anymore to pick up the phone and do it except myself and my team. But they're busy doing other stuff, so you just have to take an ownership and have an open mind, I think.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There was a mentor in our program who's a really prolific investor, and they asked him, like, how do you prioritize who you invest in? And he goes, I invest in this order: team, and then team, and then team, and then total addressable market, and then product. So if you go in there in love with your product, you're probably going to be disappointed by the end. We've changed our product several times because the market has changed, technology has changed, things commoditize. new competitors come on the market, new opportunities present themselves that weren't prepared, weren't ready, they were too early. And so you as a company, open mind, exactly, like adaptability, I think, is going to be a key piece. So like, love your team and your belief in your team to get something done that could really be something amazing and beautiful. Don't love your product quite as much because it's going to change, because you're going to learn more and you're going to be like, wow, we were kind of wrong. And we probably should have done X instead of Y, or Y instead of Z. And so, in some ways, it's hard to admit that, because you spend so much time with this product, you become very close to it oftentimes, and you believe, as the founder, as a CEO, or as a founding team, this is what we should do. But you're probably wrong, honestly. Like, I was wrong several times, and people give me, people rib me sometimes, like, what was that Pinocchio thing? And it's like, well, it got us to where we're at today. It wasn't wrong, it was right at the right time, and it's not right anymore. And that's okay, because your job is to build something amazing, not just, go down with the product ship, hell or high water. So you'll appreciate that, Scott. We've had that discussion before.
Aaron and Adam, did your products change during the program?
Without a doubt, version one of our product, I look at it now and it looks like, version 1 of the car, right? So compared to what's out, it's just, I'm like, wait a minute, how do you get from point A to point B? Now it's so streamlined and it's easy, it's intuitive, and I look back there and I'm like, wow, I look at the screens and I'm just like, I can't believe they accepted us with this product, right? It's pretty amazing.
No, we're super smart. We're done. No, our product changed a little bit, but I think for us, the bigger thing was kind of who's our audience. We had gone in there like, we want to sell to small businesses, which is still very much our goal, but they kind of brought, and it was based on their experience with enterprise sales and different things, was instead of reaching 10 million small businesses, why not reach 1,000 people that can reach those 10 million businesses? And so for us, it wasn't so much the product; it was really kind of how we were distributing it, and just kind of shifted the way we were thinking about the whole thing.
Who would you try to talk out of this? What kinds of companies should not go through an accelerator?
And this is not meant to be a dig, but there are many companies that people start that are technically startups in the sense that they start them up. They're like small businesses, right? But they're usually like what are called lifestyle companies, meaning like they're going to be service-based often, or they're going to be like working on like maybe it's a restaurant, or it's going to be a hairstyle salon or something like that. Not bad businesses. In fact, most businesses in the United States are those, and they're fine, they're successful, but they're not considered venture-friendly, meaning they're not meant to grow fast, and they can't scale without adding more people because they're service-based often, which means I have more tables, I have more restaurants, I have more servers, I have more chefs, et cetera. That doesn't scale. What you want is like Airbnb, where it's like same engineering team, same marketing, sales, et cetera team, and I can just reach every house on the planet without having every, landlord in every city, basically. Like, that's scalability. And so if you don't have that scalability story, you probably shouldn't apply to a startup or to an accelerator, because that's gonna be the first thing they look for, is trying to figure out like, how are we gonna scale you? Maybe it's a different product, maybe it's a revision of this product. If they can't do that, then you're probably not going to get accepted, even though you might be the most amazing team. However, I go back to my previous statement, if you're willing to change your product to be scalable, and you're the team to do it, then by all means, you should apply. And if you're willing to make that shift, then again, I would say you should apply.
So I'm going to read a little thing out of a Harvard Business Review review of all the literature on accelerators. And one of the things they said is accelerators have a positive impact on regional entrepreneurial ecosystems, particularly with regard to the financing environment. Metropolitan areas where an accelerator is established subsequently have more seed and early stage entrepreneurial financing activity, which appears not to be restricted to accelerated startups themselves, but spills over to non-accelerated companies as well, occurring primarily from an increase in investors. So thinking about that is, what kind of an accelerator would make sense for our region? Would an accelerator make sense for our region?
Yeah, I mean, there's one. Scott runs one, and co-runs one in Reno at the Innovation Center for UNR, and I think that that's the right size. So there's a chicken egg problem here, and Reno struggled with this for years. I've struggled with this for years, doing entrepreneurism in Reno. Is that you've got startups who are like, there's no capital here, there's no investment here, and then there's the investors who might live there and say there's no deal flow, there's no companies to invest in here, and so you've got both people saying, you're not showing up. And the truth is probably that that's probably both true to some degree. It certainly was in Reno. I can't speak for up here. So I think the right kind of accelerator is a lot like, I think, the model that Scott is running, is that you want, it doesn't need to be big, but you need to have something that can bring a few startups in, some capital. Maybe it means asking, some investors who are involved in that startup or in that accelerator to make some favors and ask some investors to come in and invest into the area, because there might not be enough capital in there. Likewise, it might mean moving some startups into the area, because it might not have them all in there. Getting density, I believe, is the key differentiator here, not the size. And it's you don't need to be big, but you need to be tight. And that's what's so cool about this group here, is that you're tight. Like, it's clear. You all know each other. You eat together. You joke together. That's how you start community. And so I think at the end of the day, all an accelerator is an arranged community that lets people deploy money in a way to make some success happen locally. And then what happens, you get a couple successes from those companies who may go through it, do well. Hopefully one or two of them exits. They then hopefully invest in their own ecosystem to stay there, and then now they've got a bunch more investors, which attracts new startups. You start to get this positive feedback loop, which I think is the key piece. You guys get the engine running, prime the pump, whatever the analogy is. But when you have that, that's where it goes. So not too big, but import when necessary until you're kind of running on all these cylinders.
And I would agree with everything that Allison said, and add that it has to be focused and add value to the entrepreneurs. So 500, for example, was really focused on introductions to investors, right? Every week or every other week, you would get a list of this week's investors and when they're coming in, and then you would sign up for office hours. And everyone would get 15 minutes. Some were formal pitches to them, some were informal pitches. They often brought in speakers, as I was mentioning earlier, throughout the day, weeks on end. It's really about adding value to the entrepreneur and making sure that you're helping, that the accelerator, if one's created in the region, how can it add value to their business, grow their business, not just doing it for the sake of doing it. Because what I would fear is that just throwing another accelerator out there and getting lost in the dozens of accelerators around the country, but if it could be really focused in one vertical, and then maybe identifying all the specific investors in that one vertical within 500 miles, and how do we get in touch with those and bring them in to meet with these companies, or maybe it's a field trip down to the Bay and it's a demo day down there, but really making sure that it does add value to the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I would just echo both of you. I think the focus is a big deal in the InsurTech space, which is the umbrella that we get lumped under. Somebody made that word up. But there's two really big ones. One's in Hartford, Connecticut, and one's in Des Moines, Iowa. And they're both in February, which I don't know why anybody would go to either one of those places in February. But they focus on InsurTech, right? And so then they got this InsurTech buzz. And so anybody who's even remotely connected to InsurTech, whether you're doing distribution like we do, or if you're using drones to survey damages, or whatever it is, I think it draws those people. And I think if you're going to be a smaller community, I think having a focus, an industry focus, is the way to do it.
Well, I've been affectionately referring to our panel as the A-team as we've been conversing. We've got thank you to Allison and Aaron and Adam. And what we'd like to do is open up the floor for questions from the audience.
Hi. So this is going to go back to your original line of questioning. I appreciate it. Logistics and kind of life. I have 3 young children and a husband that is supporting this venture of mine by working his full-time job and getting his bills paid. I have been getting emails the last few months for a couple of accelerators around the country. About 6 months out before I should be alive, as we're going to talk about. But in my mind, I'm saying, do I just not see my children for 3 months? Like, how does it actually work when you're in a situation?
Yeah, I mean, this one's pretty fresh for me. Our accelerator wrapped up the first week of May. I have 2 twin boys and a wife in Reno, and we drove down every Monday morning to San Francisco and drove back every Friday night. It was terrible. I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, we sat down as a family. I was like, look, we're bought in. There's an opportunity here. We were far enough along with Talage where we've still got a long way to go in a lot of different areas, but it's like we've come far enough where we've got a shot. This isn't, just some pipe dream. It's something that we've got some traction. We've got some customers. We've got some interest. It's not a total blind leap of faith. So once we kind of removed that, and then it was really, I couldn't do it without my wife, and she supported it, and played single mom for 3 months while I screwed around in San Francisco on the BART train. So.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the hardest part, right? Leaving the family behind. I went down to San Francisco typically on either Monday morning, rarely on a Sunday night. I mean, I did use some of the money for a Surf Air membership to make it a little bit easier for that 3-month period. So I'd go down either on a Monday morning or a Monday afternoon, and then come back later in the week, rent an apartment from a friend. There are definitely many nights where I'm bummed out, hanging out in my apartment by myself. And San Francisco, everyone goes out and parties, and you're expected to do the socializing piece too. So you go out for a few hours of cocktails afterwards with the investors and with everyone else, and then you come back and you're like, oh, I'm all alone in this one room, and it's kind of crappy. And but it's time stamped. So at the same time, it's kind of like, hey, this is a time stamped thing. This isn't a forever thing, right? It's a time stamped thing. I'm getting a great rebranding education here, and just kind of immersed myself into it and just said, you know what, it's not, you know, for me personally, it wasn't during ski season, right? That would have been really hard, right? That would have been like, oh man, during ski season. But it was in the summer and in the fall, so I was able to kind of accept that. But the opportunity just doesn't come around that often. So when I was able to look at the opportunity, I was like, hey, this could be the only time I do this. Ironically enough, there were people in our batch group at 500 that were second and third visits through. So I guess some people it does come around a lot, but others it doesn't. So it's kind of like when it comes, you just take it and you just do what you can to try and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is it's not easy. Like, there isn't an easy answer. It's just everyone's different. Like, someone who doesn't have a family who's just like, look, I'll move wherever. They're very nomadic, easy, right? You know, we had 2 children and we used FaceTime a lot and just like tried to stay connected in every way we can. You know, and for us, I think 3 or 4 times during the program, I would fly back. On like a Friday, I'd leave a day early and like try to get 2 full days in, 'cause for 1 day travel for New York, and then, you know, take a red eye back for Monday morning. And so I don't know what the right answer is, other than like, probably the right answer is that your whole family like is bought in and understands how important it is to you, and like they're like cheering you on, and like, because that's what I had, and I was super lucky. And so they were certainly hard, not easy, but at least everyone realizes, yeah, there's a time limit to it. This is for a bigger good, and when it's going to get back to normal, but with a big boost, that's a really special thing to have, and not many people get it. So, yeah.
Do the 3 of you believe you could have done it without the Accelerator experience?
Not where we're at now. No way. I didn't have the network in Reno here to raise, you know, capital from who we did. Everything compounds in this world. So, like, if you you know, for instance, we kickstarted, and then we had a family member invest a little money, and then I had gone to the Techstars program before, and so I let, you know, the CEO of Techstars know, because I kept up to them, because back then it was kind of small. It's kind of big now, and he was like, oh wait, I've not invested in hardware, but like I've got some money on the side, so I'll give you a little bit, but not much, and certainly not enough for the round. And then someone heard that he's in, and then they want in, and so it starts to compound. Like, if you hadn't got that, you would hit your stall point really short. And so it's not like we're so awesome, it's just that like it's all momentum. So like when you get the momentum, you get accepted, you get an investor, you get an intro, you push that rock to keep it going faster, and then you just keep pushing that rock as fast as you can, because that's the only thing that will keep it going. When you have that momentum, I believe very strongly you can do this anywhere in the world, if you have the momentum. How you get the momentum is the trick. So I couldn't have gotten momentum personally.
I think it would have been harder. It would have taken longer, and it just would have been harder. And it would have, the outcomes still are not assured by any means. There's a highly competitive space we're in. There's new players popping up all the time. People realize that this is a hot, digital mortgage is kind of the hot spot in mortgages, and the mortgage industry is completely broken. So there's a lot of players out there. What we will take is any advantage we can. And this is definitely an advantage that we have over some other players that haven't gone through programs. But then we have competition out there that has gone through YC, that has gone through Techstars. We have some that have raised, I think the last I saw one that's raised over 100 million. And so one's doing mortgage for JP Morgan now. So it's a crowded space, and then people come out of once they realize that, all of a sudden you're like, where'd that guy come from? Where'd they come from, right? It's like you're whack-a-mole, yeah, you're just trying to stop them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we wouldn't be. We had definitely reached a point where we had, reached out to kind of the Reno network that we had from an investment standpoint, and we're stalling. And then we got in there, like I said, we got the lead investor on. once we had the lead investor on, then we kind of went back to some of the guys we had talked to in Reno, and we did literally nothing different in the month that we had talked to them, but we were suddenly more appealing because somebody from the Bay Area had kind of like put their stamp on us. It was like, okay, we don't want to be the first one, but we really like to be the second one to invest. And so once we were able to do that and kind of get that legitimacy from the Bay Area, it gave us all the momentum. I think the momentum piece was spot on. And it's funny because once you get into one area, like we had picked up a couple big customers and we had picked up a couple big distribution partnerships, and then we had picked up the lead investor, and then it was like, oh, now we're getting more customers, we're getting more investors, and so it just kind of all built on itself, even though they're not technically related to each other at the time anyway, because this is happening kind of in a bubble. But yeah, I mean, just the momentum piece is huge, and I think it's just even an attitude. I think as an entrepreneur, you're going to hear no a lot, and then eventually that starts to sink in a little bit from a subconscious level, and then once you start hearing some yeses that, hey man, you're not crazy, I believe you, that one yes wipes out 1,000 no's.
So I had a question over here, and this might just be for one of you, since I know we're running short on time, rather than all three. But I hear so much from all three of you about the opportunity that the Accelerator gave you, funding, right? Venture capital, seed money, those kinds of things. And you're doing all these pitching, right, for all these months, meeting all these people, pitch after pitch. I'm curious about that piece. Was the expectation you came into the Accelerator with your pitches just dialed, or was pitch coaching part of that Accelerator process? Did you get reflection or feedback after your pitches from the mentors there? Just what was the expectation? I'm sure you had pitches, but was that a part of the piece as well?
Yeah, I mean, so we had a pitch to get in, obviously, so we pitched them, and so we thought our pitch was pretty good, and we showed up on day one, and they're like, yeah, we're throwing that out. Like, that's terrible. So they basically tore ours down completely. I don't know how your guys' experience was, but we thought we were pretty smart because we convinced them, and apparently they just kind of saw through whatever we were trying to pitch at the time and redid the entire thing.
No, pitching was, and pitch practice was a core function of 500. Early on in the first maybe month, it might have been 2 days a week. By the last month and maybe even 6 weeks, it was almost daily. And it was typically focused on the individual that was going to be the pitching. So in our case, it was our founder and CEO would be there, and at the pitch practices, they would have a group of people in the front that were heckling and trying to break it up and telling them, stop there, start over, stop there, start over, and judging, and it was just constant pitch practice. And if you didn't do well on pitch practice, they would actually not let you pitch during demo day. And the reason was because they want to look good. 500 wants to look good when these are our portfolio companies that we're putting out to you, top investors from the Valley, coming up for this really nice demo day catered event, and everyone, not only the cream of the crop from this batch is allowed to pitch. And most did, but the ones that did not take it seriously and never showed up at practice and would never put the extra effort in, they were uninvited. They were allowed to go to demo day, but they weren't allowed to pitch. So 500 took pitching really seriously. They had a formula to it. They had timers up there when you're on stage. They had a guy blowing a horn a lot of times, and like really just, you had to be focused. You had to talk about numbers. They would push back and question your numbers and try and poke holes in your pitch all the time. And like, where'd you get that from? Why do you say your TAM is that? How do you get that? Why do you think your product is the new way? What about and interrupt you in the middle? So that way, when investor time came at demo day, you were ready.
Yeah, when you're a startup at Accelerator, your only product at that time usually always is your pitch. At least the CEO's product is their pitch. It's their vision of the future of what this product or this company can do. Until you actually have that going and running all the way, you don't often if you're in a startup or in an accelerator. And so I got ripped apart. I mean, there was one where I started my pitch, 30 seconds in, they're like, stop. What are you building again? Like, I mean, it was that bad, literally. And it taught me that I had to really take it seriously. And we had a similar schedule where first month, it's what they call mentor madness, where it's like you meet with 12 people a day, and it'll be like, just amazing, like people that you don't really think you would apply to you, but end up being really important. Like, CTO of Fossil Watches. We're like, well, we're doing IoT, and he's like, you know what? We have a whole manufacturing line that doesn't work right. We should talk. And it's like, oh, yeah, we should talk. Like, and then you're going to talk to some other like JP person, JP Morgan. Then you're going to talk to like, someone in the accelerator program. Then you're going to talk to someone else, and it's just like back and forth. Second month, you fix your product and you change your product because it's probably not right. based on all the feedback you got from all this Mentor Madness, and the entire third month is just pitch practice. Every day, 8 hours a day, you go into a room, you write on a whiteboard, you videotape yourself, you talk to a camera, you watch it back. But that rote like skill is so important. Even in the day of, I was still super nervous in the bathroom getting ready and just like nervous right before I was supposed to go up on and pitch, 5-minute pitch. Shouldn't be that bad, right? But that becomes the product for everybody. And I can't stress that enough. Learning how to pitch is a skill anyone can get and learn, and it becomes the most important thing to convince people to believe in your future. If you can convince them of that, they'll part their money and they'll part with their network and their connections to see you succeed. But if you can't convince them, then that's all you have to go on, and you probably wouldn't get the capital or the resources that you need.
So sort of a question for everyone. I'm coming at it from maybe a little different perspective, having transitioned off a company that my co-founder and I grew to 250 people bootstrapping. And one of the things we saw at the end was we came from a small market. We came from Western New York, and we felt like it cost us a turn or two on exit. And so I guess I'm interested in what you're seeing post-Accelerator. If you're pulling the funding out, if you're pulling sort of the Accelerator benefits from a funding, but what are you seeing from network afterwards? From have you seen your cohorts graduate through to two exits? What are you seeing from strategic relationships? Do the accelerators help in that regard?
Some really good examples: Airbnb, Dropbox. Who else was in these groups? Zenefits, I think maybe already went through YC. These are some pretty big companies with some pretty big valuations that I believe in strong part got there because it accelerated them. It's all about stepping up, right? So if you get a new accelerator, then you get a good lead investor, and the lead investor is going to bring later investors, and you're going to bring private equity money on later rounds for growth. If you can get there faster and jump a hop, then you're that much further along in the same time span. So I believe very much that it's exactly what it's described as. Can you succeed without it? You're a perfect example that you can. Can you get further with it? I think so, not always, but there are some shining examples of those who are just like killing it right now, and will continue to do so, I think. And so I think in general it's a net positive, but there's no guarantees for any of it.
Yeah, I'd say there's no guarantees, without a doubt. Spending a second on that, I remember the opening presentation at 500, and the core message from our batch leader, our group leader, was get to know your batch mates, your cohort mates, because 98% of you will be asking them for a job, right? So you will fail, 2% of you might succeed, and on and on and on. And he really drilled that in. So it's not a guarantee. It's not like, okay, you get a home run. But what it does do is it adds a piece of validity to who you are. And now when you have strategic conversations down the road, you're a YC company, you're a 500 company, you're a Techstars company, it adds value to that. And it validates that, okay, it's not just me, other people also believe in us. Kind of like if Kleiner Perkins or Sequoia invested in you, it adds value that other people truly stepped up and believed in your vision.
Yeah, totally agree with both of them. I would just add on the network piece, just even dealing with the other cohorts. I mean, we have cohorts that are customers, we're customers of theirs. I mean, so you even have that coming from a core business standpoint, you have that model. Somebody's went to school with somebody who knows somebody at a company that you need an introduction to. I mean, so from that standpoint, the network effect of it, I think, has been really valuable, and we're obviously very fresh out of it, but those introductions have been useful.
One more question in the back.
How challenging was the interview process, and what percentage would you say the team around that idea contributed to you getting accepted into these accelerator programs?
For us, I mean, we had an interview with a couple different accelerators, and we were declined. The Acceleprise accelerator that we actually got into, the interview process was super easy. Like I said, we got introduced to a mutual friend who said we just got to meet this guy. We flew to San Francisco, met with him, and we were accepted pretty quickly. So our story was a little weird in kind of the way we got there. You guys can probably speak to the interview process better.
Yeah, our team, our core team is based out of San Francisco. Our founder's in San Francisco, and he is networking extraordinaire. So he made it his business and his day job to become friends, really tight networking friends with the 500 leadership, and built relationships with that leadership, and was introduced to the fintech lead. And really he was boots on the ground, and he was there at a networking event, in San Francisco. There's 24 networking events in every specific micro vertical every single night. He showed up, he found out where they were, he would show up and make sure that he was getting to know these guys and became friends with them. And then when the interview process came, it was not easy. We went through the full interview process, but the relationship was there. So there was the foundation of a relationship to build on versus random X company coming in and meeting them for the first time. They had been tracking us, they'd been following us. The word was introduced from the founder of 500, you should meet with these guys, and that relationship had developed. So I think it really goes back to relationships.
Yeah, same for us. I mean, the team, again, is the most important piece. The product, not so much for the interview process. But it's pretty grueling. Like, you know, that's some pretty specific questions, and you need to give your A-game pitch. You think it's your A-game. It's really not. And that's okay. You'll look back and laugh. But yeah, I mean, the networking piece, I totally second that. Like, you know, we had some connections from the first time I was in Techstars, and that did not get us in. But a lot like I think what his founder did, which is super smart, is you have to go build those relationships. Like, if you can build the relationships, it doesn't matter where you live. But if you can't build the relationships remotely, you don't have a network. So there's a little bit of a premium that you have to pay as a remoter, like Truckee, Reno, et cetera, not living in the valley or the city. But you can still do it, absolutely. I mean, I've raised 3 rounds of funding living in Reno. It just meant I lived on Southwest Airlines for 6 months at a time, you know, flying down. Quick side note, you can actually get to San Francisco City from the Reno airport faster during rush hour than you can from San Jose to San Francisco at the same time. So think about San Jose and Reno. It's basically the same thing if you fly. And so you can do it from here, Reno, Truckee, but you have to spend the time to get there. So I think that the networking piece really is the core component that people often don't talk about.
So I'm going to end with one quick question and then give you a chance to share anything you didn't have a chance to say. So the quick question is, we have a bunch of students in the room. What was the age range of your cohort?
Average age of our cohort, the range.
They're young folks.
I mean, yeah, we had some.
Not that we're not young. But
Yeah, no. We're distinguished, right? I had some in my cohort that were 19, 20, just barely adults, basically. I had some that were 50. It's pretty broad. And, you know, I had one from Hawaii. We had all over the country, like not just, we had some from Spain came in, New York as well, but all over. So pretty wide range.
Yeah, ours had lots of these sub-verticals. So we had fintech, I think there was ag tech, there was a health tech, and there might have been one other small group within our big cohort. With the exception of fintech, everyone seemed like they could have been my child. Right? I felt like this really old guy that comes in and all the financial service guys were, you know, mid-career, a bit older, kind of trying something new, or reg tech, older guys like myself. And then all the other categories were these really young guys that, you know, they could gals, and they could go all night and, you know, go work all night and then go out for drinks and then go right back to the office and work and don't require sleep. It was a really weird thing because I'm like, all right, I need my sleep. Yeah, so I felt, with the exception of financial services and the fintech folks, everyone was definitely, I was their senior.
Ours was much more spread out. I mean, we had a big range. There was a couple guys older than us. You know, kind of mid-40s was probably the oldest, down to these 20-year-old redhead Irish twins from Ireland. And so, I mean, it was kind of a big spread from everywhere. I don't know what their product was, but I love listening to them pitch it because they could not tell them apart, and they had great accents. But
give you a chance to share anything else you didn't have a chance to answer questions, anything, final bits of advice for people thinking about accelerators for their future.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just follow on, and since you specifically brought it up, it's not easy, but I think it is worth it, and it's really kind of that is 3 months worth potentially changing your life forever, is really kind of what the conversation we had in our family and how we went with it. So.
Yeah, I would completely second that. I mean, it is a short period of time. It's great education. It's great networking. You will meet. There's still people from our cohort, from our batch that I stay in touch with. A lot of folks that we're all networked now, and it's a great group. There were 2 kids, two graduates one out of Stanford Law, one out of undergrad at Stanford, who went through the program and said they learned more in the 3 months than they did in 3 to 4 years of their Stanford education, because it was so intense. But you have to have that. You have to be open to it, and showing up and there were definitely some desks that people never showed up. They just went to check the box, right? I think you would see them once or twice over the course of 3 months. But then there were others that went in there and basically got rid of the ego and said, I am going to learn whatever you're offering to educate me on. And those are the folks that, whether or not their current company succeeds or not, they have that education now, and you'll have that education forever, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, this is a little bit of a larger suggestion, but it's the one thing that I've carried through all of my startups is that the only thing really, honestly, the only thing that will keep you from succeeding at what you're trying to do is you. Like, if you, and it sounds a little trite, and I don't mean it to be like smug, but if you quit, you lose. And if you don't quit, you don't lose. Like, and if you don't quit, you have to figure out another way to try to win, but you don't lose. The only thing that stops you is you. So, you know, everyone talks about unicorns, and I always joke with people I mentor that you should think more cockroach and less unicorn. Just don't die, survive nuclear holocaust, you'll be just fine. Because that's really what it comes down to, right? It's like, we all talk about these, you know, magical creatures, and it's like, just be like resistant, be like persistent, right? And that has got me through more of the hard times. That applies when you go into the program and you're like, I'm just gonna not quit, I'm just gonna put my head down. It applies when you're trying to fundraise. It applies when you get your 10 no's for one maybe and then one yes for every 10 maybes. You know, you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna get to my no's so I can get to my yeses. And you start to like thank your no's because you're like, thank you, that's one less no I need now for my yes. And they're like, weird, you're thanking me for a no? And you're like, yeah. Because you have like this mindset, you're not gonna quit. And so that is what got me through those hard times. Like literally it's that. And it's not anything magical. It's not that only some people have this skill. It's simply something you have to decide you want to do and then just decide to do it. Every single person here in this room could totally do it. I firmly believe that. It's just a matter of mind and setting your mind to it, I guess. So.
Thank you. I'm incredibly impressed with the startup talent that we have locally, and I think this is truly an A team. And I think you'll be around for a couple of minutes if people want to talk to you individually. Before we do that, we missed one announcement at the beginning, so I'm going to invite Brooke and Scott up to chat for just a minute or two.
Okay, so we do have incredible local talent, and this was awesome. And I think one of the coolest things about our area is how approachable and accessible these serious leaders in these industries are. And so we're here to talk a little bit about a pre-accelerator program, which is kind of what you might go through before you apply to a YC or something like that in the Internet of Things space that Ali has been involved with in the past, and we're hoping she'll come back again this year. And I don't think you want to hear this voice for much longer. So I'm going to pass it off to Scott Levy, who has a beautiful deep voice, and he's going to tell you more.
Thanks. Yeah, so pre-accelerator, there's so many terms out there, but ultimately, we believe, started with three of us, and we touched on a few of the points. We were operators. All of us have built companies from the ground up in a variety of spaces, technology, manufacturing, healthcare space, my partners and I. And we're all expats from the Bay that came to this beautiful area about 4 years ago. And one came earlier than that. And to Ali's point, one of the concepts after being here was you try to get into the deal flow, look what's happening here as far as the ecosystem, and the same deals were talked about quite often. They'd been floating around, being punted from Summit VMS to one other help group that might have been out there. I'm also a member of the Sierra Angels and saw their deal flow. None of it was from this area, often from all over the country, not even the Bay. So we had a belief that we're on the cusp of something really exciting here. A lot of people have moved here, many in this room by choice. So this area offers so much as far as, I wouldn't talk to Ali about balance right now, but as far as a way of life, and there is another way. And so we think we're very lucky that the Bay is right around the corner. It's not a nemesis, it's a opportunity. But at the same time, we believed, my partner is the director of the Innovation Center. So he runs that, and I was up here. But the thought was we needed to create something to attract people so they could see the script locally, hopefully become part of a success. We ran one last year as an MVP. It's called the Innovator. Last year was a 6-week boot camp. This year will be an 8-week boot camp. IoT hardware. One of the companies that we brought here, Watershed Growth Ventures, was from California, IoT company called Breadware. And part of helping to convince them to come here was the fact that they met with Allie early on, and there is 1.5 degrees of separation here. So that is an exciting thing that we can bring to the table. And so we decided to, last year we kicked it off with a 6-week boot camp. This year and next year we'll be running 2 programs each year, all specific around IoT hardware. Last year's cohort consisted of companies from Ireland, Ohio, and UNR, the Reno area. So all of them have stayed here, and they're all in the earlier stages. We help fund and mentor over an 8-week period and connect the dots locally as far as investment. So we're excited to be able to launching it again and looking for sponsors, mentors, partners, and investors. But we've raised funds to hold it over the next 2 years, and looking for the few, the proud, the bold cockroaches, right? So
well, I think that wraps it up. One final round of applause for our